All right. Thank you all again for coming out. I'm Connor. I'm the founder and CEO of Inkah, and we are a marketplace for intermediate language learners to finally make the leap between basic speech and fluency. I actually just moved back to the US from Asia, where I lived for 9 years. While I was there, I studied Mandarin, but I was also the co founder and CTO of 99.co, a property portal in Singapore. While I was there, I led product and engineering, and we grew it to be the second largest property marketplace in Southeast Asia. It's in good hands with my co-founders. I decided to leave to move back to the US, but it continues to grow and I'm happy for them. But through the experience of studying Chinese and speaking to other learners, it became clear to me while learning Mandarin that what got me through beginner wasn't enough to get through intermediate. You need to learn to think in the language, to improvise and come up with novel sentences and ideas. And as part of that, you often have to immerse yourself in context with content that actually has natural conversations and descriptions. And what do we most often think about? What do we want to talk to each other about? What do we want to have conversations about? It's content that we're interested in, content that actually reflects our daily life. And often when you're going through a fixed curriculum, you'll find that the vocabulary you're learning is not relevant to how you're actually going to be using it. And so when you're looking for the topics that you're interested in as an intermediate learner, you find there's just not enough of it. I, for example, was interested in Chinese culture and slang. And despite waiting for 9 years for the top apps to offer it, Duolingo going public, having 400 employees, they still don't have it. But do you know who does have it? Inkah. Why do we have it? Because we are building a marketplace where educators and learners can become creators and help other learners. Meet Carol. She teaches Chinese at the National Taiwan University and loves talking about Chinese culture and slang. She often talks to her students about it and has pulled her material online, but only her students have access to it. Our platform will unlock that content. And there are thousands of other people just like Carol out there. With our product, you'll be able to select your interests, your level, be able to filter by what's important to you, and be able to practice with audio, video, and transcripts you can easily absorb by going sentence by sentence. You can see explanations for key concepts and save the words, grammar, and concepts that are important for later review. And that's important because then Inkah can create personalized lesson plans where you can learn one concept at a time. And by learning one concept at a time, you're able to progress while still having the flexibility of enjoying the content that you like and you're interested in and fit your goals. For our business plan, we're going to be doing a freemium subscription where our pro plan will go for $8.99, while free users will be ad supported. To incentivize creators, we're doing a revenue share model similar to Spotify, where we retain at least 30%. And for our competition, we've positioned ourselves so that we can best serve the intermediate learner. A marketplace gives us network effects for defensibility, and as we learn more about the interests and the level of our customers, we'll have a data moat via our algorithm and data. This is not our first language learning product. We actually launched our pilot product earlier this year, which is a browser extension that lets you learn Chinese and Korean as an English speaker from watching shows on Netflix like Squid Game, watching YouTube, or browsing articles on the web. We've built a community around it. They love it. And we're going to use them as part of our customer acquisition strategy for our upcoming app as we continue to dive into building a community and expanding on Reddit, our Discord server, and other channels. We've also built relationships with language learning influencers. These influencers are incentivized and want to talk about the latest and greatest because what do their learners want to know? How can I learn faster? How can I learn more? And in terms of paid acquisition, we're not reinventing the wheel. We look at industry standards and we know that we can create a profitable business with an LTV to CAC of 1.5 to 2x. To solve the cold start problem of a marketplace, we will supplement the supply with publicly available podcast RSS feeds. So we have the supply from day one. And in terms of our market size, there are currently 750 million language learners learning digitally. The market is set, digital language learning is set to 3x by 2025 with a 25.6% CAGR. We're going to go after the low-hanging fruit of intermediate language learners that take language proficiency exams every year. There are 8.5 million of them out there, but this is only a proxy. There's a lot more out there. And if we capture just 10% of those 8.5 million test takers, that's 850K subscribers. That brings 90 million in of ARR. Our team is made up of educators and learners that have all felt the pain. We have contributors who have decided to address the pain point for themselves and support the vision. We're currently raising a pre-seed. And finally, language is about connection. And we want people to be connected to their material, to our culture, and to each other. And that is what we're all about. Thank you all so much. Happy to take questions.
Awesome. Awesome job, Conor. Okay, so questions for Conor. All right, Steve.
Hi.
I know you're not shy.
I'm not shy at all. Hi, Conor. Good job. Thank you for the presentation. And good energy too. Thank you. So quick question is, I mean, as you know, and everyone knows, the obvious, right, is that this is a very crowded space, right? So you have a niche, which is cool. Talk to me about just like where your budget assumptions are moving forward, because like right now it's, you know, pretty easy with a niche to go meet some people and validate your market. But as you go deeper, just like Zynga raised the price per click of download for every game developer, it didn't crowd them out. It just made the capital requirements of those future successful games to be higher. So just talk a little bit about that, because I do think it's something that would affect your capital raises in the future too.
Yeah. So in terms of our timeline, what we're looking at is the pre-seed round to finish building out the app. We know, given our current community, we can already bring them on board. And in terms of the execution plan, we're looking at going through those 7 languages of Asian languages first, of Chinese, Korean, and Japanese, where we think the pre-seed is more than enough. And as part of that, we'll also start with Spanish, which is another key language. Where we'll definitely have to raise more capital is when we move into English language learning. And that's where the big hyper-competitive space is. So it is a crowded space, but generally most of the competition is in the quadrant of English learning. And that's why we're starting with these beachhead markets, which we can go after with a far more capital efficient vector. So small, big seed is the plan.
All right, Aubrey, go ahead.
Yeah, Conor, to that, you mentioned a little bit about kind of getting the flywheel going by populating sort of RSS feeds with podcasts. Like, talk to me a little bit about, seems like always a key that we think about in terms of getting these marketplaces going is how you get distribution to the right people. And so if you can just go one layer deeper on, it's one thing to like put a podcast out, it's another thing to get the right distribution. Like how do you actually reach, this right demographic of intermediate learners?
Yeah, so what's fantastic about the language learning community is that they are very close-knit, and many of them are hyper online. So where we've had a lot of success and we plan to double down on is Discord specifically. Many of the language learning Discords out there have tens of thousands of members, and they're happy to talk about new tools and services. So we see that as our new distribution mechanisms, leveraging this new network via Discord. They're the classic channels like Reddit and Instagram, just StudyGram culture. So this is where we go back to focusing on language learning influencers. So if we're going capital in terms of marketing expenses, what it's going to be is actually incentivizing the language learning influencers to talk about us. And finding the right people, you find, okay, you're studying Korean, this influencer is publishing at the intermediate level, we're going to go after you. So we just look for who is the influencer in the space, and then we find that target demographic. That also applies to Discord.
Hey, Conor. Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Ayush. Yeah.
So typically in language learning, I think there's a lot of churn in a lot of these different kinds of tools and services to learn languages. I was wondering if you could point to an element of your product that is going to help mitigate churn, or how are you looking at potential churn in your product?
Yeah, it's a great question, Ayush. So part of the reason that we want to target intermediate language learners is that they have already proven themselves going through the gamut of being very motivated and going through beginners. So one of our expectations with going after this niche as our beachhead market is that churn is going to be far less than the aspirational learner who comes in for a couple months just to learn a few basic phrases, goes to France, etc. And that's why we still want to go after that serviceable, obtainable market of these language learners that have proven they want to pay, take a language proficiency test to know where they're at. And for these language proficiency tests, they have to listen, read, and write in long form. And that's exactly where our product differentiates itself.
Awesome job. All right, Conor, thank you very much.